Welcome to the Good Growing Podcast. I am Ken Johnson, horticulture educator with the University of Illinois Extension, coming to you today from Jacksonville, Illinois with a garden bite. And this week we're going to talk a little bit about selecting and transporting holiday plants. So the holiday season is here, which means evergreens, poinsettias, amaryllis, and other holiday plants have arrived or have been arriving in stores. These plants are often the center of our holiday decorations and traditions and are frequently given as gifts. So whether you're buying them as gifts or for yourself, here's a few tips that can help you or the recipient of these plants enjoy them throughout the holiday season. So first off, poinsettias. These are the most popular holiday plants in the United States, and we have about 40 million poinsettias sold every year here in the US. While we grow them as a houseplant in their native range in Mexico, they're actually a woody shrub. And what are widely considered to be the flowers of the plants are actually bracts or leaves that look like petals. The actual flowers are greenish, kind of yellow in color, and are clustered at the center of the bracts, and they are called cyathea. And these flowers are going to be important when it comes to picking out our poinsettia plants. So we want to pay close attention to those. We want to look for plants that have flowers, that have their flower buds that are still closed and have a green tint to them. Flowers that are open and producing pollen, and you can often see this pollen as yellow dust on the leaves, should be avoided because poinsettias will drop their bracts and leaves shortly after the flowers shed their pollen. So if you want your poinsettias to last a long time, look for plants that have the flower buds that are not open yet. And while we traditionally think of poinsettias as red, breeders have produced a variety of different colored cultivars nowadays. We can find them in white, pink, orange, gold, and yellow, in addition to red. You can also find some that are striped or speckled with various colors, red and white and pinks, what have you. You can also find blue and purple poinsettias. These are not actually plants that are blue or purple. What these are white or cream colored cultivars that have been painted blue or purple. Another popular holiday plants are Christmas cactus. And while we commonly refer to these plants as Christmas cacti, there are actually several different types of holiday cacti. So we've got Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter or spring cactus. And they get their common names from the holiday closest to when they traditionally will bloom. However, they can be forced to bloom at other times of the year. So most of the quote unquote Christmas cactus that are sold in stores are actually Thanksgiving cacti that have been forced to bloom around Christmas time. Regardless of the type of holiday cacti that you're going to be purchasing, if you want them to bloom around Christmas time, we want to look for plants that have well-developed flower buds, but with no open flowers. And if we're looking in this late November, early December timeframe, plants that are in full bloom during this time will likely be done blooming by the time Christmas rolls around. So if you want plants that are blooming at Christmas and it's late November, early December, look for those that do not have open blooms, but have those well-developed flower buds. Amaryllis are another popular flowering plant that we can find this time of year in many stores. And you can get amaryllis two different ways. You can find them that are pre-potted, and occasionally they'll be growing or just starting to grow. And with these, all you need to do is give them some light and water. And you can also purchase the bulbs themselves or sometimes kits that have the bulb, some sort of potting media, and a pot in them as well, and plant them yourself. When it comes to selecting amaryllis, the size of the bulb is going to be important. The larger bulbs are going to be able to produce more flowers compared to those that are small. Larger bulbs also tend to produce thicker, stronger stems. They're going to be much less likely to flop over. So when you're looking for amaryllis, try to purchase the largest bulbs possible for the best floral display. You also want to inspect the bulbs to make sure they're firm, they don't have any mold or decay or other signs of injury on them. Last up, we'll talk about Norfolk Island pine, and these are often marketed and sold as living Christmas trees. And you can also find them adorned with bells and bows and other things on them, kind of pre-decorated, so to speak. Despite their name, these evergreens are not actually pines. They belong to a completely different family of plants, the Oricoreaceae, whereas pines belong to Pinaceae. In their native habitat in the South Pacific, Norfolk Island pines can grow to be over 200 feet tall and have trunk diameters up to 10 feet. So these can be very large plants. However, when we grow them indoors, they're in less than ideal conditions. We usually don't have a whole lot of light and stuff. They usually only grow a couple inches a year when grown indoors as houseplants. When we're selecting Norfolk Island pines, we want to look for plants that are uniformly green and have few brown or yellow needles on them. We want to make sure we pay close attention though. Oftentimes these plants will be spray painted green or covered in glitter, and this is going to interfere with the plant's ability to photosynthesize. So if you want to keep your plant around long term, you want to try to avoid painted plants or be prepared to remove as much of that paint or glitter as possible. Now, regardless of the type of plant, these holiday house plants that you're going to purchase, regardless of the type, we want to make sure we inspect them carefully to ensure they appear healthy and they are free of pests and diseases. Again, we don't want to bring any plant problems home on these plants so they can spread to your other house plants you may have indoors. When it comes to transporting these holiday house plants, most of these are pretty much all going to be tropical in origin. So exposure to cold conditions can damage or even kill plants if they're exposed for long enough. So there's a few different things we can do to try to prevent damage to our newly purchased plants. If you're going to be making multiple stops while you're out purchasing your plants, try to arrange your trips so that you're purchasing your plants at your last stop to avoid leaving them in a vehicle where they're not going to have any heat on them. If possible, avoid purchasing your plants on particularly cold or windy days, which I realize can be easier said than done during the winter. And this is going to reduce the chances of them being damaged, being exposed to those cold winds. We also want to try to insulate our plants the best that we can. You can try calling the store beforehand to see if they have material you can use to insulate your plants like paper, or if they don't, or if you don't feel like calling them, bring some of that stuff with you so you can insulate your plants before you bring them outdoors. After you purchase those plants, wrap them in paper and then place them in a bag, double bagging them if possible, and keep the tops of the bags cold so you don't get any cold air coming in from the top. Paper bags are going to insulate better than plastic bags, or if you've got disposable shopping or reusable shopping bags, those will also insulate better than your typical plastic bag you'd get at a store. Ideally, you're going to have your vehicle warmed up before you put the plants in. So it might be helpful to bring along friends or family with you, somebody that can go out and start the car or your vehicle before you bring your plants out and get it nice and warm before you bring your plants out. And we also don't want to put plants in the vehicle trunk. Trunks are typically going to be colder than the cab of the vehicle. So again, they're going to be exposed to colder conditions in there. We also want to try to avoid letting the plant's foliage touch cold windows because this can damage the leaves as well. And since we're on the topic of holiday plants, talk briefly about selecting a real Christmas tree, some of the things we should think about before we select those trees. So we want to measure the height and the width of the space we're going to be putting those trees. We don't want to buy a tree that's too big for where we're going to be putting it. We want to try to choose a fresh tree. So those trees are going to have a healthy, green, full appearance with, again, a few brownie needles similar to our Norfolk Island pines. The needles should be flexible, and if you run your hand through the branches, the needles shouldn't fall off. You can also try picking up the tree a couple inches off the ground and drop it on the butt end. And when you do that, you should have very few needles fall off. If a lot of needles are falling off, that may be an indication that tree is drying out. And it may be a good idea to look for a different one. It's also a good idea to think about how your tree is going to be displayed. So if you're going to be have your tree set up in front of a large window, you probably want to have the tree looking good all the way around. If you're sticking your tree in the corner of a room, if you've got one side that's got a big gap in it, you can put that in the corner and hide it. The more perfect, quote unquote, perfect a tree is, more than likely the more expensive it is. So keep that in mind. And then finally, we want to look at the base or the handle of the tree and make sure that's nice and straight for at least 6 to 8 inches. That's why it's going to be easy to fit that into the stand, and as well as make that fresh cut before we put that in the stand so it can take up water well. If you need more information on caring for any of these holiday plants, you can check out our Good Growing blog. We have articles on all these different plants and how to care for them, and we've put links in the show notes below. That's all I've got for you for this week. Hopefully these tips will help you select plants that are going to last a little bit longer during the holiday season, as well as maybe not get damaged when you're bringing them outside from the store. Good Growing Podcast is a production of University of Illinois Extension. To our listeners, thank you for doing what you do best, and that is listening, or if you're watching us on YouTube, watching. And as always, keep on growing.